Hello, and welcome back to the Day Luna Human Design Podcast with your host, Dana and Shayna. We are super excited about our special guest of this conversation. East Forrest is a musician that we have been really connected to for a long time. His music is so beautiful, and we've used it in a lot of our ceremonies. We've used it in a lot of our live in-person music that we played at our retreats, in our breath work. So we talk about that a lot in this podcast episode, but it's a really beautiful conversation about the power of music, the way that learning how to listen to music and having psychedelic experiences, even connected to music, can really help elevate us into higher forms of truth. And East Forest is on because he's just done this documentary called Music for Mushrooms, which we talk about a lot in this episode. I'm really excited for you all to hear more about it. But a little bit about him. For 15 years, East Forest has been a pioneering figure tapping into a subcultural movement rooted in the belief that music and psychedelics are healing modalities. Now, with a psychedelic renaissance and groundbreaking research propelling this movement into the mainstream, he offers an unprecedented glimpse into his own story, sharing insights on mushrooms, magic, and his role as a leader. Okay, so without further ado, let's welcome on our guest for today, East Forest. We are so grateful that you're here. We're super excited to have this conversation. And honestly, I feel like we need to start out by just thanking you because we listen to your music all the time. We're big fans, and we use your music in our breathwork sessions and ceremonies. And it's been a huge blessing and a healing magical thing in our lives and in our community. So we're so grateful and thank you so much for everything you do. We're super excited to be having this conversation with you. But how are you feeling today?
I'm good. No, thanks for having me here. I'm looking forward to talking.
Nice. Right on. So we'd love to just ask you from the beginning. I mean, I know that we were talking beforehand that you are perhaps a manifesting generator in human design, which one of the signature themes is having a lot of different interests. But I love that you've gone on this journey of music and really advocating for psychedelics and the healing that could come from that, and now filmmaking. So I'd love to just start out by asking you a bit about your origin story. Like, what brought you into music? And how did that naturally play into the other things that you've been working on?
I feel like music's probably been one of the through lines, like because I started doing a lot of music things in school, like public school. I mean, that goes all the way back to when all of us play recorder in like whatever the grade that is, first grade or something. But I got really into like choirs and then band, in school, and then like musical theater, just anything with music. I was really into it. And it wasn't until college that I started writing my own songs because they had better instruments, better pianos. I never like had played a nice piano. And lo and behold, that feeds itself, like if it just sounds good. So then I started writing songs, and then when I got out of school, I was living in New York City, and I started a band and played in some other bands, but was really like pushing a band I had for a while. And it was like a piano pop thing. It wasn't going great, but I worked really hard at it. And I learned a lot. I learned like the basics of recording, and we played tons of shows. We were just like all the things you do when you're first starting out, cutting your teeth and learning. And New York City is a hard place to do that. But I really got a lot of experience through that. And then I don't know, like 6, 7 years later is when I really had the opening into the whole East Forest thing, not even knowing what I was falling into, but it was through psychedelics, through ceremony, through really feeling like, okay, this is what I want to do, and this is what I want to focus on. So the other things I was doing in my life, I had other interests too. I was a photographer. I was like acting too, and so in some ways, coming back to the film now, all these years later, it did bring a lot of those old interests. I majored in film in college, and I used to want to make movies, but I just fell into this other stuff. And music's just been like the thing that really is something you can do by yourself, whereas filmmaking is so collaborative and takes like these big structures and funding and teams, which is awesome. But especially when I was younger, that was a big like hurdle. And so yeah, but music's been there all along.
I love it. That's so cool. Yeah. And music is, I mean, the fact that we can make music by ourselves with our computer in any space, like in a van or a shipping container or wherever you are, it's honestly amazing. And filmmaking, I would really guess, is completely next level. Like, just the equipment is so expensive, doing all of it is so collaborative. But it's really cool
Yeah.
that you've been able to branch all those things back together and have that like full circle moment of all the things that you are coming together. I feel like that's a really beautiful and powerful thing to see when someone is being like all of the facets of you and all of the different talents are coming together in one thing. It's just like that project feels supercharged. And I really feel that from this thing that you are creating now. So it's amazing. Congratulations.
Oh, have you all been able to see the film yet? I'm just curious.
No, we haven't. We've
No.
just been
Oh,
looking at the stuff that your PR team
okay.
has sent.
Yeah, well, we got to get you a screening or something, but it is cool. It's just it did I get to do like all these different things, because there's a lot of music in it, but of course I'm doing the score for it sort of as we went along. And then even when it's documentaries, if someone has a camera in your face, there's probably a bit of acting involved.
Mm-hmm.
You're
Yeah.
aware, it's like, or when you're filming other people, even if it's like an interview or something, it was fun to like be on the other side of it and try and
Yeah.
like get what you wanted out of that scene. Or and shooting, we had a lot of people. John Dahlgren and Mark Wachowski shot a lot of it too, and some other friends. But it was fun to like get behind the camera and get back into photography or filmmaking through there's dusting off the old lenses. That was nice.
That's awesome. Yeah, for our listeners who aren't aware of your documentary, can you tell them a little bit about the inspiration behind it and I guess the magic that they'll get from watching it and learning from that
Yeah,
documentary?
it's called Music for Mushrooms, and musicformushrooms.com if you want to learn about it, see the trailer, find a screening. But it's in a theatrical release right now, and we'll be doing more events with that, both in person and online throughout the year and into next year. But it's a feature-length narrative doc, so it's really exploring. I wanted to make something that was more emotional than tons of information, and it does have a lot of information. And we talked to a lot of amazing, diverse people throughout the film. But it's really following my journey as I'm trying to explore, like, does it make sense to expand this kind of work publicly? In a sense, like, is that safe? Does it meaningful? How can we do it in the best way? And all the kind of trials and tribulations that happen. So it's following what happened in the last 2-3 years. And but more than anything, I'm hoping it just cultivates like a feeling in you of inspiration, and it can help you just take those next steps in your own path. And I wanted to make this because movies and screens, all the things we're watching now can reach so many people so fast, and it can have a real emotional impact. Like, you can't argue with a felt experience. And it's not like some idea or dogma or something. It's like, I don't know. It's like you're going to feel something, and that will help propel you to take the next steps. And um, so I just think it's a particularly powerful medium today.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's so interesting, well, Shayna and I, first of all, I just had to say, we really resonate with your story because Shayna and I met in school. We went to college together for music and performing and musical
Oh, okay.
theater. And in high school, we did musical theater, to be honest, because you got to get out of regular school and go do something fun and creative and collaborative.
Yeah.
And then once we graduated college, we're like, we're not going to actually do musical theater though. And we were in bands and performing. And along that journey, it just kind of brought us to, but I want to help people heal with music. I want to help people feel things with music. I want to help people connect more deeply to themselves and to their truth so that they can connect to others with themselves and their truth. And so music kind of took a turn for us, and we still really use music in our everyday lives and everything that we do. When we teach human design, when we have retreats, it's just such a huge part of our lives. But it became really clear to us, like, what does the world actually need, and what gifts do we have that we want to contribute to that? And that invitation to feel more deeply, to feel it, right? To not just talk about healing, to not just talk about modalities, but to help people find that true embodiment of an experience of healing and connecting to their fear, connecting to their shadow, being able to share that vulnerably and be seen in that. We just feel so deeply that people who are here to help us lead that, like that's going to change the world. And it's kind of hard to even talk about embodying something or feeling a frequency. It is something that you truly have to experience. So I think through these mediums and art forms, you get to give that opportunity where it's like hard to even put in words, but anyone who watches it or listens to it has that embodied cellular experience that opens them up to that deeper layer. And I really believe that it is so healing for us and something that brings us together, because those emotions that we feel and the way that music moves us and the way that an image can tell a story without necessarily needing words, I think is something that's really universal.
Yeah, I mean, really, we need all the tools we can use right now to help us all transform in the ways we're being called to. And it's not easy. We're under a lot of pressures, and I think we're each feeling those in our own unique ways. Some of them are global, but they trickle down in our lives, and so in that way, I think we're all looking for, well, what are some authentic tools we can use that maybe actually work, because some of these traditional structures are breaking down. And it's also an accessibility question. Like a lot of it's gated behind some healthcare systems or really expensive retreats. And I'm really interested in like, what can we do to reach people at scale in a really accessible way? And I think music, when of course it can reach people right very quickly, but it's kind of thinking, how can we use it in a way that's maybe deeper, or we get more out of it, squeeze more juice out of the lemon. And I don't think it's actually that hard or that complicated. It's just like you add on these little layers of intentionality, or maybe I'm calling it ceremony, but that could be as simple as like just doing one thing at a time. Like just sitting down and be like, I'm just going to listen to this particular song, and that's it. I'm just going to listen, is a radical act today. And it sounds crazy, but that's actually a kind of medicine for us. And it allows a natural process to start to unfold that is in some ways being tamped down by the multitasking, by all the other concerns and issues we're dealing with on the face of things. And so we kind of have to like create the space, to be spoken to, or create the space to have this process, unfold.
Yeah, it definitely does not sound crazy to our listeners, or to us, because a big part of human design is really teaching you how to tune into the energy and the resources that you have available to you right now. Like everything that you could possibly want, you could just tune in to yourself in this moment and be present and receive some wisdom or some insight about authentically what it is that you need or you want. And so I love the idea of the radical act of just, let me just put on a song and just be present with it and not be on my phone, having a conversation, doing the dishes, doing a million things, but really just tuning into this moment right now. And we always are like, okay, tune into this moment right now and really feeling your energy. Like, do you have energy to do this thing, or do you actually feel blah? Do you feel nothing? Like the wisdom that you can find from your own body, I feel like can, that presence, I don't know, there's something about music that just kind of amplifies or allows people to ease into being with themselves in a way that maybe is hard to do in silence. And it brings another frequency to it, right? Like the healing that music gives you in and of itself, like the frequency that you're receiving through being present with that, I think it kind of brings you on a journey. So I'm just like, I'm excited to talk about psychedelics, because I think that it's something that for a lot of people is really taboo, but then for a lot of people is like totally normal. And there's a lot of fear around it, but then there's also a lot of like people opening themselves up to it and really realizing the healing that can happen through experimenting or using plant medicines. So I'm curious to know about your plant medicine experience, and if there was like something that maybe your first time doing it, or a really profound experience that you had that you were like, I need to share this, or um, pair it with the other things that I'm doing with the world.
Yeah. I mean, I've had many experiences that just blow your mind. It's so beyond anything like that I can wrap my head around or control or understand. But there's deep levels of feeling and understanding there about its meaningfulness, and it's like it humbles in a way that feels valuable. It just gets us out of our heads where life is like right in front of our face, and you can zoom out and you have this bird's eye view where you can start to feel the connection and connective tissue of like the real design. When I say design, I just mean like the meaningful connectedness of all that is, and how you're a part of that. And my God, that is super valuable to really feel that, when we feel so isolated or so meaningless, or all the things we're told and feel from day to day are the ways we're hijacking our minds and consciousness to feel more lonely or more anxious. It's pretty necessary to counter that, to get back to like what we are. And psychedelics can sometimes, for some people, get us into those spaces. And so it's not necessarily changing you. It didn't change me. What it is doing is like I'm having these experiences where I'm feeling things and being shown things that are so salient that I want to change things in my life. Like I decided way back when I had a particular experience in 2008 with my first record that I only made for me to journey to. And when I did with mushrooms, it was life-changing. Life-changing because it was so beautiful and so meaningful to me that it made me feel internally like whatever that process was actually more important than anything else. And I was just like, that's actually enough. That can exist. Like, and somehow there was like this conversation going on, almost like the universe itself, that helped me make this record without me even knowing. And that's what I was doing until I took the mushrooms and did it. And I'm just like, what? Oh my God. It's like, it tricked me in a way. I made this tool to use in this journey to transform, but I didn't know. And that was so beautiful. It was like this gift. And just that was cool. And so watching other people sort of have their own, let's just call it similar experiences, mean like deeply personal and meaningful to them, and recognizing that it's happening all on their own just by presenting them with the right space and music, sort of the right intention. And there it is again and again and again and again. I couldn't really stop doing that in good faith, because I was like, well, whatever I feel about it, like it's definitely, I'm seeing it help folks over and over again. Nothing I'm saying, or I'm not telling them what to do. It's just like, oh, they're like, I just, was talking to my dead father and I was working out this trauma and I never said I love you. And now I was able to do that. And I'm like, okay, wow. Great. And so in that way, it's just trusting, again, a natural process. And music,
so beautiful.
Music is just like, it speaks this, we take it for granted because it's just everywhere in our lives, and we can all sing and stuff, but it's like, it speaks this psychedelic language. It's a magical tool. I mean, if you really just try to zoom out and think like, why does it even exist, or what is it? It's very strange. And the good news is like, it's so beautiful, and it's just like these infinite varieties and like endless songs that we're writing and singing to one another, just like telling stories forever for this. And I think like for the sake of just doing that, like that's enough. That maybe that's the point, is just sing to each other, to sing one another awake. And in that way, it's not just some destination. It's more like a celebration of the human spirit. And in that way, that's why you try not to think about it too much when you're actually in the flow with anything. But when you're in the flow with music, it's like, I don't know where it's coming from. It's just pleasurable. And we're all just kind of swimming in this feeling. And then when that's over, next time you pick it up, it's a new feeling. And that's the good news. That just keeps going.
Yeah, everything you said is just so beautiful and hits home like right in the heart, right in the feels. And it's so true when you think about listening to music, like going back to what you're saying of just putting on a song and listening. I feel like that state of listening, it's active and it's receptive, but you're not doing anything. You're not thinking thoughts. You're not trying.
Right.
You're not controlling. You're receiving. And that medicine is something that we have forgotten in so many ways. The average person has forgotten how to just listen, how to just be, how to allow a celebration to move through them instead of it being something that they need to think about or control. And there's so much medicine there. And I love what you said too about maybe we're just here to sing one another awake. Like that gives me chills because I think a lot about humans and what we make. Like for some reason, bees always come to me and the honey that they make, or, you know, like a mother's milk, like producing this amazing magical elixir that you can give. And I think about what do humans make like honey? And of course, when you're breastfeeding, you make milk, but I think we make our voice and we make our music. And it is like this absolutely magical gift that for some reason pours through us. And it's always been there. And it is so innate. And I think a lot of people think music is not innate for human beings, that only special people are creative or only special people are musically inclined. And I have found the opposite to be true. Almost every single person is musically inclined. It is something that moves through them. And even if they don't feel confident creating music or writing music or singing, when they listen, it is this undeniable connective force that feels like a celebration of life. It reminds them of love. It reminds them of that higher plane of all of us being connected. I mean, and it's true that it's something that is so universal. It's everywhere. Now we have it on our phones. That is an amazing thing. I was talking to someone the other day about spending all the money they had buying records in the 70s. He's like, yeah, I got this job and I spent every dollar I had buying music. And I was just tripping about now we have all of this music in our bedroom at our fingertips, anything you would ever want to hear. And it costs like $7 a month for us. I mean, I actually don't agree with that, but because I think it's more valuable than that. But it's just the fact that we have this access to music and that it can be such a powerful tool to remind us, to awaken us, to connect us. It's really something that I think we can have more conversations about. And I'm really grateful that we are having this one now.
It's kind of why we made the film. And it's just sort of showing us maybe what's right under our noses, giving us permission, though, to enter into the healing space. And more than anything, to show each other that, like, oh, like, you're seeing other people's stories and experiences as you watch the movie. And it's like, oh, that's like me, or that's like my brother. It's like, hopefully we're seeing like, oh, I'm not that different. Like we all feel a lot of this stuff. And that's what connects us. You know, we might have all this polarization or different political beliefs, especially right now, but we all feel the same things, and we actually all kind of want the same thing deep down. And so showing that and reminding us of that, that's a way to create a bridge to hopefully counter polarization, tribalism. But look, we each have to curate our own life and consciousness, and the best minds in the world literally are vying to grab it, and most of us are just like lost and like truly like I can't control it, and in that way we are being manipulated drastically. So it's important to claw back the areas of our own volition and our consciousness in who am I, what is my, what can I invite in on my terms, what can I cultivate that's mine. And that is like, perhaps it's all, again, it's super simple, but it's things like I said, you know, listening to a song, but going on a walk, just walking around looking at stuff. Just, you don't have to multitask that either. Free writing, anything. I mean, honestly, anything. It's just sort of like, all it takes is this little tweak of intention, meaning like you choose to say, this is what I want this activity to be. Now you've just like opened a doorway of you saying like, I want to go this direction. This is what I'm inviting in. And you need to create that invitation to be spoken to. Like, I think we're being spoken to. There's a conversation happening all the time, but it's a conversation. Converse. Like, what is it you want? What stars are you navigating by? And don't overcomplicate it. It's just like many times the thing that's right in front of us is the thing that's the work. Like Ram Dass was talking to one of his teachers, and he's talking about how we're always getting high. This is back when they're taking acid all the time, and it's a bummer to come down. Like, and what this sucks. We're always going up, and then we have to come down. And they said back to him, well, have you ever considered like that you're in a school your life and you should take the curriculum? It's like your family, your friends, your pets, like these things that are right in your life, right there. That's actually probably the real work beyond inside your heart. It's like that stuff, as opposed to what we're projecting out on social media or these grand things we're trying to do. Not that those aren't important, but it's like the real work is right there. And so it's just like, just take one step, or it's like, is there one little gesture you can do, or what do you really want out of that relationship? Or maybe you need to go back to therapy, so it's kind of bringing it back down to earth.
Yeah, I love that so much. I think that's a really good reminder because, yeah, I think for those of us who are interested in psychedelic experiences and going on these journeys, we're looking for these higher, transcendent, amazing, magical experiences. And you can definitely have them or find them, but can you create that in your daily life? Do you feel empowered to make that shift or to make that choice to really become aware in these little moments and receive what's here for you right now? Because the truth
life
is
the point.
There's so much. Exactly. Yeah. I love it.
Point.
Life is the point.
We're here to live. Yes,
you're here
and to
right
have experiences. Now.
Yeah. I love that. So let's talk about Ram Dass. I'm curious with this project, Music for Mushrooms, is he involved in this project and in what way?
Well, he's in the film, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And he pops up in a lot of different ways, actually, in music. And then there's a whole scene where there's actually some footage of when I was filming with him, recording with him, and sharing his wisdom and music. So yeah, he's a big character in the film. And it's been cool to watch how Ram Dass continues to be more and more relevant for people, even especially young people. It's kind of interesting since he passed on, and he's continued to expand in meaningfulness in a way, which makes sense to me, but it's been cool to watch.
Totally. I was so into him a few years ago, reading all his books. And my parents that were like in the hippie generation, I'm like, this is new in the world. And they're like, wow, it's crazy that you're discovering it now. Like,
yeah.
But I'm curious to ask you, how did you connect with Ram Dass and how did that journey go together?
Well, probably like both of you, I'm guessing, like he was a teacher from afar through his books and talks and stuff. And so that was meaningful to me. And I'd done some recordings before with spoken word where I was recording people like my friend VC Johnson. And there's a song of mine called 10 Laws that was actually the first song I wrote for the project. And so I just had a kind of fluency or where I was like, recording stuff and putting in music. So I thought like, well, that'd be cool. I have a clear vision on what that could sound like with him. And so I reached out and it was just the right timing. And because I wanted to do a record that involves some other people, some featured artists and stuff. And I think because of that experience I had, they're like, well, you could kind of take the lead on that. And some of these other inquiries we've been getting maybe. So that was back in 2018 when we were recording it. It came out in 2019. So back then they hadn't done a lot of that, actually. Since then, they've done a lot more. But I really put my all into that record at the time. Proud of it and happy. It's definitely made its way around. Some of those songs are getting their spins with people, which is cool.
Absolutely. And they're so deeply powerful and impactful. I was saying this in the beginning, but we've used some of your music in our breathwork journeys. And for us, music is a key player in the journey that we create. We use music to help suggest different parts of storytelling to bring people into a new era. Like we barely speak, but we curate our playlist very, very intentionally. And I can't tell you how many, like hundreds of people that just hearing your song with Ram Dass speaking on it, like the last song of our breathwork experience, it like literally changes their life. and impacts them forever. And I just think that it's really important to reflect on that. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen the music Cloud Atlas, but they talk about like writing this beautiful masterpiece, and he wrote it. It came through him. He created it. But once you share it with the world, it belongs in the hearts of everyone. And it's changed the lives of everyone. And I just think that it's such a powerful and unifying thing. I really want to express my gratitude and also just share with you. I mean, I'm sure you hear stories like that all the time about how much it's impacted people, but it's super special. It's really something that I feel like is just so important to sit with and to drink in the magnitude. And I feel like in so many ways, you've pioneered a lot of this stuff. Like, you are so much on the initiating forefront of a lot of these conversations, this type of music, sitting in ceremony with music, having like mushroom ceremony listening parties. Your voice has been definitely an initiating force, kind of like a pioneer in this area. And I'm curious to ask you, how has that felt for you? Like, do you feel that you've been on the cutting edge of something and that you're sort of leading the charge and you see the impact in the wake behind you, or how has that been in your experience?
Well, I'll say it didn't feel as cutting edge 15 years ago because it was not cool and no one cared as
No one
much.
cared.
And what people
Like,
did was just a very small, hardy group. And
Uh-huh.
I haven't really changed what I'm doing since then. It's just, I think the culture has shifted and it's what it's looking for and its needs. And so what I've been offering is just more relevant today culturally. And that's very fortunate for me as like an artist. But when I had that experience that I was talking to you about for myself 15 years ago, that it was just so loud in its beauty for me that not like acknowledging that and letting that reverberate into all aspects of my life felt like a disservice or disrespectful to how profound it felt for me. Just it felt really personal, and I didn't at all. It was the opposite of what I thought I could do with it. I thought there was actually nothing else to do but give it away, and so I just started giving it away for free everywhere. That was back when there were CDs and you bought music on iTunes. And so I just put it up on like the Library of Congress for free. And I literally just gave it physically to people. And
wow,
that was my thing. And because I was like, if it has any use for others, great. That's just like icing on the cake because it's already transformed my life. And then we started doing ceremonies. My friend Lewis, who's a producer on the film now, he starts setting up all these ceremonies to play for people. And I was more just like being invited to do that. So I was like, okay, well, I'll do my best. And you do that for years and years, you learn stuff. And that's where the musical language came from. And that's where like the looping and the field recordings, like it was literally like, what will help the people go through this? And then I was recording it. So some of that made its way into early records, but I thought it would have I thought no one would be interested in listening to that, likely because it was long form. There was not really a genre. There were no lyrics really. It was experimental. And I was like, I don't know if that would translate outside this room. And it did more and more over time. And there were certainly like milestones that happened, like the Ram Dass album for sure. And there were a few others along the way, but it's been very, very gradual and organic in its the conversation with people. And it's sort of like a certain kind of thing you plant in a garden that's a slow grower. So it's like, it's not like, wow, look at this tomato plant. It's like, hey, this has been going for a long time. And it's been so gradual, you kind of just get used to that gradual thing. I remember when we went to Australia for the first time, and the only time I've been in 2020, like right before the pandemic. And I'd never been. And I was like, I played 8 dates across the country. And I thought, I have no idea if anyone over here is going to show up. Right. I felt like there were more people there than the States. Like, it's like, there's a bigger scene here than in America. And I was like, this is so weird, like, and cool, but I've never been here. It's so far away and I don't know how you cultivate that. So it continually surprises me. But at the end of the day, like you were saying, you make something and you put it out there, and then that's its thing. It has like a life, and now it's like a
Right.
child that you put on a little boat, and it's like and you hear messages from it like that, like you just told me, like we play it in
Yeah.
breath work, and I'm like, oh, that's so sweet. It's having a nice life out there. Like
Yeah.
that's not me, that's like something else that speaks through, and I'm super happy. Like you're proud of a child that it has meaning. I mean, there's nothing better than something to be meaningful for others. Nothing better than that. But at the same time, I know it's a big part of that's beyond me. I'm not in control of that really anymore. And that's good. That's good. So I'm happy that these conversations are more relevant now, and I'm happy that we're starting to talk about these things that we've been talking about for a long time. But we also have, because we've been talking about it for a long time, I think we have a unique vantage point to share. And I am waving the banner a bit, particularly in psychedelic therapy, of like, hey, there's some things here we can use that we're not really talking about a lot, and that's a mistake. So let's talk about it, and let's. It's like all hands on deck. Like everybody's needed right now.
I love that feeling of legacy that's kind of coming through, and almost like uh time travel, like the intention that you put into this thing that you created years ago, and now it's out there in the world changing people's lives, and it's this energy that you're focused on other things, you're building other things that are going to outlive you, right? Similarly, as you were mentioning with Ram Dass, and now people connecting with his teachings and getting a lot of meaning out of it, the younger generations. But it's really interesting how the presence that's needed to create something that's powerful, and it helps other people get present in that moment that you couldn't even possibly connect with or understand. Like you saying that there's all of these people in Australia that you've never even been there, and they're so connected with your work. It's just really fascinating to me, the whole, like this whole digital space where we put something online and now people from all over the world can connect with it years later as if it's the first time it was ever created. And it's profound for them, but for you it's like, oh, that was 10 years ago for me. And I was in a completely different space then, but maybe it comes back around full circle with a whole new meaning for yourself on the other end of it. It's just really fascinating thinking about all these things. I can go into a million different rabbit holes here, but I wanted to ask about this, where you're at right now, like this chapter of your life, and with what you are creating now. What is the thing that is exciting you, or is feeling expansive, or like you're learning right now that it really excites you?
Well, professionally, it's the movie, because we're really just getting started on sharing it, and we've been working on it for 3 years. So that's very exciting. And there's a whole like longer release conversation with that at different types of events that is exciting to me. And hearing people's responses, and it's just, I'm still in like the new phases of that. And then I'm really interested in some live experiences I want to make. That's a vision I've been holding for a long time that I still haven't been able to do. And some of that's like a resources question. So I'm still like, I still have some gas in the tank a little bit to like, hopefully I can still get there and do what I want to do there. We'll see. Personally, though, it's probably like a lot of people, it's just sort of mashing all that up, like career life, all the things you do, um, and having that be pitted against everything going on in the world, and getting older and recognizing the end point in life. I mean, I know it might sound strange to say, but I think about that a lot, and just that all the desire is just desire, and chasing. It's like there's really nowhere to go, and so I think a little bit more and more about like motivations, and I guess it's not so much legacy. I mean, I think about that, but it's even beyond that. It's like, well, even that, beyond that, like, it's just trying to find like peace of mind and cultivating that that kind of release, more and more release, as opposed to gripping and trying to steer things. It's sort of like, well, what does it feel like to do less of that? And sometimes that's kind of like not a good feeling. As a manifesting generator, I'm like, I want to steer the ship, and it's like, what if you didn't? And that's letting go in a way, where it's like, I can trust, but I've done a lot of steering in my life, and so I think the edge for me in some ways is about not doing that as much anymore, which is, there's some grief in that, but it's also natural, I think.
Yeah, that's really interesting. One of the things that I was really impressed with that you said was when you were creating that, it's like planting a slow growing tree in a garden or whatever it is. When you're just doing the thing that is in front of you that feels good and feels real and feels natural, and you're not thinking about necessarily who's going to like this and is it going to have an impact and is this steering or controlling the next step in my forward progression of my career. Like, you're not doing any of that. You're just being real with what's in front of you in that moment. Naturally, you're going to actually create the most profound impact and the most profound wake by just being yourself, and you don't need to control it. And that tree that you planted because that's what you were doing, later on, maybe it does become this beautiful tree that provides for the next generation, but it wasn't your job to contrive that or control that. And sometimes when we're doing nothing, I put in quotes, you're doing so much more than in those times where you are controlling and contriving and steering. And it's really interesting to see that happen in real life. And I really like what you said about, like, in a certain way, there's nowhere else to go. Like, you're here now, and can you be here, and can you be the most you in this moment, and trust that that is going to change the future of consciousness. You are going to contribute the unique thing that only you can contribute to the collective when you are being so true to yourself in each moment and kind of letting go of playing the game in such a strategic way.
Yeah. I mean, I do all of those things probably 10 times every day. I mean, look, I'm definitely, the lesson I learned 15 years ago is to not pander, and that's when the things really opened up. But sometimes it's just like dealing with the like the admin. I think we probably all feel that. It's just like the incoming and the this, and we have to do that, and responsibilities and teamwork, like teams, and that's tough right now. We have it's just like you're just always on that, treadmill of doing stuff. It's probably the biggest thing for me, and that's a very comfortable space for me, actually. All my life, like I'm a doer. So maybe that's more the edge. It's like, what is it like doing less? And that's less comfortable for me because I can do a lot.
Right.
And I mean, here I am, like I have 5 days off from this theatrical tour, a week or whatever. I came immediately down here to Southern Utah, and I'm swinging a hammer every day, and I go immediately back. And as I don't, I just, cause I'm like, that's all I have. And I want to get this built. It's always like that, it's like when we just making the movie at all. It's like, I didn't stop performing and recording and doing all this. I was doing it all at the same time, which was wild, I mean, it'd be like everything I was doing, it'd be like, okay, do we need to film this? Like as I was doing it, and then like, okay, I need to get someone to do this and that, and be directing, and then I have to go perform, and then it's crazy. But I had this vision. I was like, I really wanted to do it. I saw this thing as like, I feel like this could be a really cool thing to make, and I get excited about it, and I just do it.
Yeah. And I mean, working on it for 3 years, and now it's finally here. People are viewing it. I know that you did like the first premiere of this theatrical kind of tour in New York in September, I think.
Yeah.
And then you did LA, and you're doing like a series of different places, and being able to share this live in person. And I'm curious if you could just share a bit about like how people can connect with this film in the future, and when they'll be able to connect with it, all of that stuff.
Yeah, it's just musicformushrooms.com or eastforest.org, and get on the newsletter. We'll let you know when there's a screening and stuff. It will have been in over 60 cities. We've done at least a third of that already. So there might be one near you. Some of them are only once. So you have to kind of take a look. And then we'll be doing some things online. So, if you missed it or you're just not around or other parts of the world, like we'll be able to share it with you and have larger conversations around that. And then December too, we're going to have like much deeper materials. Like there's so much stuff we couldn't put in the film. I mean, right? You film all this stuff. So like the longer conversations with all the amazing people we talk to. There's like an end concert in the film that you see a few minutes of. Like that whole concert, we'll be able to share it. So that's all at musicformushrooms.com, where we can go a lot deeper and hear from other people as well.
I love it. It's so cool. And something I'm curious to ask you about is why you love doing live events, because I think we talked about the internet in this conversation and putting your music out into the world. And that is such a powerful tool that you don't have to be live in person, and people in Australia that you've never met can connect with your music via technology. I mean, that's honestly amazing. And I think an important and key piece of our future and how we're moving. But then I also think just having these online connections, there is definitely something that's missing there. And I do think it's really powerful and important to create live events where we are connecting in person. But I'm curious to ask you, what's your take on that? Why do you get excited about creating live events?
Well, I mean, they're hard, right? For everyone. You have to travel and it's hard, but it's also can be the most magical. And it's beautiful. Like the things you can do, you're taking these risks together in a room as a group, and some really magical things can happen. And I also do retreats with my partner Rada, and like at Esalen, and we're doing a retreat again in February at a place called Reunion in Costa Rica. That's a psilocybin retreat, and that's like where we can go probably the deepest with folks over a long period of time. And I mean, that's very meaningful for me to watch that and be participating with people, and we're all like doing something together. And look, it's something too we're more hungry for all the time when our lives become more digital, that we're really like hungry for that human connection and seeing something happening in real life right in front of us, particularly artistic. It's magical, as opposed to like it gets distilled down in different ways, watered down. It's still powerful digitally, but it's not as much as when you're just right there. It's like a picture of the Grand Canyon's cool. Standing over it's like, oh my God. Not that I'm the Grand Canyon.
I was just gonna say.
You know what I mean?
I love it. I know we really have experienced that, with this podcast, being able to reach, millions of people. And over time, somebody listening to something that I said 4 years ago and messaging me about it. And I'm like, wait, I said that. And then, but then having our in-person retreats, the magic and the, what we receive out of it equally, and the co-creation of our energies coming together with whoever was meant to be there, and the healing that we both symbiotically receive through just being and sharing space and going on that journey together in person. You can't recreate it. Every single time it's different. Every single person that's there brings their own energy to it, and it's so profound. So I definitely have felt that, even just going to a music festival or going to a performance of something where I feel like I was meant to be here right now with these people that are all in this crowd experiencing this, whatever's playing, and this musician right now. Like there's this magic of feeling like divinely meant to be there. And I felt that even with my, psychedelic experiences, and the first time that I did mushrooms, feeling like this was so meant to be, that my life felt forever changed. And I remember saying for like the first year after that, every single person, it should be required that they do mushrooms once a year, because everything there would be so much healing that would happen, that a lot of our issues would be resolved. But of course, that's never going to happen. Well, who knows? I don't want to say never.
Graham Hancock was saying, he's like, anyone who's running for president, you did do ayahuasca 12 times.
Yes. Oh my God.
I mean, if you think you can do the job, then you definitely need to do the work.
Yeah. And especially since our consciousness is like it's all that there is, really. And we are kind of like moving through the world so physically unconscious, and our leaders are so just focused on the 3D. They're not focused on like the power of our consciousness. There's just so much to tap into with our consciousness. And I think that psychedelics is definitely, a really great gateway to open your eyes to things that maybe you weren't able to without it. But so is music, and so is in-person gatherings, and so
Well,
is,
we have to do it from the ground up.
yeah.
It's like the leaders, so to speak, are only reflecting back to us what we're telling them we care about.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
so if from the inside out we start to have more reverence or importance, we're like, this stuff matters, then that will be so in our governments and our elected officials and so forth. It's just like they're just scared people trying to stay in power. So it's like they're just like, we're doing what they're talking about pandering. That's just like, real leadership is like telling you the problems. I mean, Bernie Sanders did that a bit, or it's rare where they're like, this is a problem. We need to do something about it. Most people are just like, they're just reflecting back what, our own fears and so, but forget about all that. It's like, we have to do it from inside. The real change happens from the inside out. It always has.
Sure.
It always has. So that's why inner work matters.
Yeah, I know the first question of like, who am I? Like, who am I? If everybody could just ask that with that genuine intrigue, I mean, that's where like it starts, right? Like, you don't need to buy something to ask that question. You don't need to go on some retreat or study under some guru to ask that question. Like, it's really accessible to anyone. And it stems off from there. So I think it's really, really powerful. I'm excited for people to learn from you. I'm excited for them to connect with your new exciting offerings. So yeah, thanks for having this convo with us.
I love it. I just had one more question that I wanted to ask you before we go. Right now, with going into the election season, I'm really into what this conversation that we just had, that it starts with the inside. I think that is like one of the most powerful takeaways for people. I think there's a lot of powerful takeaways in this conversation. One is start with the inside, put on some music, just listen to it, gather in live events, that matter to you. I think there's a lot of like tangible advice for people on how to start sort of implementing change now. But with this polarization that we are experiencing in our collective, and so much like this versus that, and black versus white, or whatever it is, what is something that is on your heart to offer people that we can really focus on to navigate this in a way that is going to serve our collective?
Well, as far as listening to music, I just want to say, like, I just released a new album that's the soundtrack for the film, and it's all ceremony tracks, and there's two Ram Dass tracks in there that are like reworks live. So there's some cool stuff to listen to there that could be relevant. But as far as like the political climate, it's very important that we're not othering. Whatever vantage point you're coming from, you could be angry, you can be passionate, but I was trying to say again, like, we all actually have the same feelings and problems, and in some misguided way goals, but a lot of those are misguided. And so internally for yourself, if you do a check and you're like, okay, the things that I'm fighting for, like, are those about me, or is it about like us? But truthfully, this is not a performance where someone's going to check you on what you think or say. It's like, if you really go in, it's like, is that because I'm really afraid of XYZ and I think this thing's then going to protect me? For instance, like an immigrant's, like, is it about an immigrant's the problem and I need to protect myself from them? Or is it more about how can I lift up us, meaning everyone, in different ways? That's like the energy of the universe. That's the energy of cooperation. That's the energy of love. And I'm not trying to simplify it, or I'm not trying to like water it down to something to say there aren't real problems out there. It's just like, we can't just keep building up walls, literal or figurative. And so it's like, if you want to ask yourself, like, do I feel like I'm kind of caught up in something in any regard, that can be kind of a good North Star. And generally speaking, just because we disagree with people, like I've people down here where I am in Southern Utah, it's like, boy, are we different, but we're friends, that's fine. It's like, we're supposed to find compromise, and that means you don't like it all. That's how it's supposed to be, that's okay. Instead of it's my way or the highway. So spiritually speaking, it's like, do we have that attitude of like, your gain is my gain? Because it is.
Yeah.
It is. And if it's not that, it's just about your gain. It's like you might want to take a look at where the source is of your own beliefs.
Right. I love that. There's so much wisdom in that. I was just at a yoga festival recently, and there's like hundreds of people doing this yoga class together. And they asked us to close our eyes and raise your hand if you genuinely want every single person in this space to win in life, and open your eyes and look around. It was like hundreds of people. And it just was such a good reminder. I think at the end of the day, that's everyone's truth. We do. We want everyone to win. We want everyone to be successful and happy and healthy and safe and loved. That's the truth, the highest truth. And it's not that hard to access. It's right there. It's within us. It just takes that conscious remembering that that's what we're doing, that that's what's important, that that's going to be the love that guides us home, that guides each other home. So I love that.
Well, we don't want to be in delusion. And so
Yeah.
it's important that we have like mirrors in our lives to echo back to us if we are, because there's a lot of
Right.
delusion. But there's a line in the film from Court where he says, love is the highest truth. Truth is the greatest good, but love is the highest truth. And it is.
Yeah. Beautiful. So I'm so grateful for this conversation. I really want to thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us today. I think it's going to be a really exciting conversation for our audience to listen to. And I know we've mentioned before where they can find the documentary Music for Mushrooms, and I'm sure people are going to be interested in attending your retreats too. So if you could just share with us one more time all of the places that people can find you.
Well, if you go to eastforest.org, I suppose you'd find everything, like live dates, retreats, the movie, my podcast, all that kind of stuff. My Patreon, whatever it is you want to explore and see if it's for you or the right, way to weave into this stuff. For some people, that's social media. So yeah, eastforest.org. And wherever you listen to music, it's easy to find East Forest, find that new record. And yeah, look forward to meeting new people.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you.
Wow. I hope that you got something from that combo that just sparked a little bit more presence and more magic in your life. Magic just seems to be the word that's coming to me from this conversation, because to me, magic really is that presence, that thing that is available to you in only a moment that you could feel, right? It's like something unexpected, or it moves you in such a unexpected way that's just yours to experience. So hopefully you can sit down with some music today and just receive and be moved. And as always, you know where you can connect with us at daylunalife.com or Instagram at dayluna. And we are just so excited to see how music moves you today. Thank you for tuning in with us today. If you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe to follow along and learn more about human design.